Hi, I'm Roger from Holistiplan, and we have a new feature that we're announcing today. And this isn't just like a wimpy, like we changed the color of a button from green to blue. Like this is a new, pretty big feature that I think really rounds out Holistiplan as a year-round tax planning solution. So at the premium subscription levels, we're rolling out what we're calling the tax prep letter. We almost called it the tax prep summary, but both of them are pretty generically named, let's be honest. But what we're doing is basically you spent last year coming up with a lot of great recommendations for your clients on the planning side. You recommended that QCD to save them on taxes. You recommended that 60-day rollover because it was a more efficient way to move money from one place to another. The benefits of those recommendations, the benefits of that good advice doesn't actually get realized unless it's reflected in the tax return. And so that's the time of year we're in now, where we're making sure our clients are fully prepared to go into preparing their tax returns and making sure they're accurate to realize all of those good ideas that you had for them last year. So that's what we built into the system, and that's what we're rolling out today. So the tax letter, what's it meant to do? Yes, it's a nice reminder, first of all, of here's what we did for you last year. Remember all those good ideas, that good advice that we provided last year? It's a good touch point for the client. Number two benefit is it actually just helps your client get prepared for taxes. It's a scary time. It's a stressful time for your clients this time of year. So to give them more ammunition so that they're ready either to prepare it themselves or go to their tax professional. It's just a helpful, useful service to have for them. And then the third benefit really comes maybe in a few months from now when you're actually looking at the tax return after the fact. And if you see something that wasn't done properly and you raise that as an issue, and when the CPA, I've seen it happen, says, well, you never told me that you did this thing. You never told me it was a QCD. Well, now you have documentation that says, well, you know, actually back in February, we did inform everyone that this QCD happened last year. So there's several good reasons for doing this tax letter. Now, when you think about it though, if you multiply it out by all of your clients, that's not the most scalable or efficient thing you could be doing, because we're talking about a custom document that you're preparing for every single one of your clients that has distinct content in it tailored to that individual client across your entire client base. And that's why a lot of firms don't do this, is it's just normally not a very scalable thing. So enter what we're calling the tax prep letter. To get started with the tax letter, we navigate to the household screen. Now, if you are in a premium subscription level with Holistiplan, you will see at the bottom this section here called tax prep letter. And the first thing we do is we click this little button that says create a 2020 tax letter. This is what we're preparing right now as information for our clients who are preparing their 2020 tax returns. You'll see if we click on this configuration button here, the ability to turn on and off certain sections of a letter based on if a client did that thing during the previous year. And you'll see a whole list of potential bits of information you may want to include in the tax letter based on what happened last year. Now, this was a crowdsourced list that came from advisors on our platform. There was a pretty notable tweet that Jeff Levine sent out where a lot of CPAs responded on what they'd like to see in tax letters. So that's what we built in here. We can click here to actually show what the letter looks like. Now you can see at the top here your same logo that you've entered into the system that's used on the tax report. That can show up at the top of the tax letter. And within the tax letter itself, you're able to make the same configuration adjustments that you were able to make back on the household screen. So here I'm turning on and off various sections. You will note that in some of the sections I have the option, it's not required, but I have the option to actually drill in and give more detailed information about what happened. So for example, I've turned on a charitable distribution from an IRA here. Well, the CPA may want to make a determination as to whether or not that charitable distribution was in fact qualified or not, if in fact that charity was a qualified charity. So we can give them some information on what the charity was, what the amount was, and so if after the fact, let's say I add 2 of them here, and one of them is a real charity and one of them wasn't, then the CPA has the information they need to make that decision as to whether or not these are all qualified distributions. Other sections besides just these on-off kind of checkbox sections are, one is accounts. So one thing that we learned from a lot of our clients, we did a survey last year about what are you doing every quarter, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, as far as tax planning goes. And a lot of people responded that in the first quarter, they're communicating to their clients, these are the tax documents, the 1099s, the 1099Rs that you need to watch for and provide to your CPA. That's something that's apparently a lot of advisors do. Well, that's what this section is for here. It allows you to name all of those various accounts and then the types of documents that you want the client to keep an eye out for. Also at the bottom is capital gains. You're not required to do this. There's other information. There's other places where clients can get capital gains information, but sometimes the custodians may not have the history going back as far as you want them to, or maybe it's an asset that's not held at a custodian and you need to provide some capital gains information to the tax preparer. This is where you can do that. And you'll see some various options here. You can say, well, this includes reinvested dividends, or you can say, actually, the actual cost basis is unknown, but this is an estimate. This is the rough time that it was purchased. Information that can help the CPA kind of track down what the capital gain might have been on that asset sold during the year. At the very bottom, you can see this disclaimer. Now that is, you can set that up in the firm admin screen. It's going to be a different disclaimer from what you've got on the tax report. So the tax letter, you might just want to say, you might want to phrase it slightly differently, right? Instead of maybe in the tax report, you're saying something along the lines of, this information does not constitute tax advice or something like that. Whereas at the bottom of the tax letter, you may want to say something like, these figures are not audited and therefore refer to the original tax document. Something like that. That's your choice. That's between you and your legal department. You will notice that there is a client and a CPA version of the same letter. The wording is a little bit different for each. This was at the suggestion of Jeff Levine, who's on our team. He said basically, the CPAs may not appreciate some of the language that kind of coaches on here's how this particular event would be captured on the tax return or not. They may just want the more basic, just this happened or this didn't happen. So you can flip back and forth. You may make the choice to just send the client version to everybody, including the CPA. It kind of depends on your relationship with the CPA, but we gave you that choice to flip the language back and forth either way. So once you've prepared the whole tax letter, you have the choice. You can print that out and include that with a mailed letter, or maybe include that with a package of documents that's being sent to a tax preparer. You can print it to a PDF and include that with an email. It's your choice. It's just like the tax report where we're giving you a deliverable that you can then share with the client, and hopefully they then use to help them go on their merry way with their tax return preparation. Now we're not done, because a few months from now, we will be receiving the completed tax returns back from our clients. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to go and take a closer look at those things that we warned the client and their tax preparer about, to make sure it was captured properly in the tax return. So for example, that QCD, that the QCD, what happens is it shows up on the 1099 as a taxable distribution. It's up to the tax preparer to know to pull that back out. And so when we're checking the tax return after the fact, when our client has provided it and we're doing a tax return review, wouldn't it be nice to go back and refer to this tax letter that we did and say, oh yeah, let's take a look at that QCD, the lines related to QCD, or we did a Roth conversion. Which parts of the return are related to that? Well, now I'm going to click into this 2020 tax report for a 2020 return, and you can see at the very bottom here, this new section, if the system finds a tax letter attached to this household for this tax year, it's going to include this section here that actually lists out all of the sections that we said, yes, were true, were included in the tax letter. And so we're able to then see, okay, go look at this row here of the 1040 just to make sure that everything checks out. So we've kind of closed the loop now. That's why I was saying this really turns us into a really year-round tax planning solution, because now we've got these handoffs between doing the advice, communicating the advice to the preparer, checking to make sure it was incorporated into the tax return. And there's actually one more thing. I'm going to flip back to the household screen. You may have seen this earlier. I had a button to create a 2021 tax letter. Now, obviously, we're not preparing 2021 tax returns right now, but wouldn't it be nice if during the year, as I'm taking part in, as I'm doing these actual tax planning actions, wouldn't it be nice to capture them as they happen so that next year in January of 2022, when I'm doing the tax prep letter, that information is already stored, already in the system for me. So that's a choice you can make, but if you want to adjust your workflows during the year, so when you do that QCD, when you do that Roth conversion, you are actually capturing it in Holistiplan in that moment. Let's say you did it tomorrow. You could capture it tomorrow in the system for 2021, and then it'll be there waiting for you next January when you're preparing the next tax letter. That is the extent of the new tax prep letter functionality. We're really excited about it because, like I said, I think it really rounds out Holistiplan as a year-round tax planning solution. Basically every year what we're doing is we're receiving that tax return. That's where it starts. We do a review. We start to do some projections. We make some recommendations and we act on them. We capture that now in the tax letter table. And then next year, we've got all this information ready to go. We can provide that to our client as they're preparing the return to make sure, again, it never happened unless it's captured in the tax return. So that's what the tax letter helps happen. Then when the tax return is completed, we do a new tax return review and we start the cycle all over again, where in the next year, we're making good decisions, making projections, and we're capturing everything that we do as we go along. So really, quarter after quarter after quarter, we're proving to our clients that we're looking at their tax planning, that we're making informed decisions for them, and we're helping them avoid the stress of screwing something up, of getting something wrong. So we hope you'll give it a shot. Again, it's right there today for people on Holistiplan's premium subscription levels. We look forward to hearing what you have to say about it.